The loyal subjects of the Empire had no inkling of the disastrous fate that had befallen their beloved generals and soldiers. Nearly 1 million troops had marched into the forest of Jura, confident in their victory and the fulfillment of Emperor Ludora's dream of conquering the Western nations. The weakening of the evil dragon Veldora had seemed to ensure their success, making the formidable forest appear less daunting. However, the reality was starkly different. The Imperial army, considered the strongest in history, had been completely wiped out before they could even reach the Western nations. The ambush by the Rimuru Tempest Federation was entirely unexpected, and it shattered the Empire's dreams of world conquest. For now, the Empire's citizens remained blissfully unaware of this devastating defeat. Their confidence and ignorance were a temporary shield from the harsh truth that would soon reveal just how unpredictable and vast the world truly was. In the Imperial capital's Composite Division headquarters, a secret meeting chaired by Yuuki took place, attended by Kigali, Laplace, Thierry, Footman, and Misha. They discussed unexpected developments that forced them to rethink their strategy against the demon lord Rimuru, who had significantly strengthened his army and wiped out an Imperial force without casualties. Yuuki highlighted the unique power dynamics among the current octagram, noting that Milim, Luminous, Dagrel, Leon, and other demon lords had amassed vast territories and powerful forces. Kigali, formerly Kazalim the Curse Lord, realized the demon lords had grown much stronger since her time. Survival as a demon lord depended on luck, strategic alliances, and seizing opportunities. Lessons Kigali had learned from her own experiences. Even Roy Valentine, the Bloody Lord, was merely a stand-in for the true demon lord, Luminous. Despite her power, Luminous couldn't fully suppress Dagrel's force. Kigali reminisced about her past jealousy towards beings like that, individuals who could easily defeat her. She lamented her lack of intelligence compared to Carolon and Frey, regretting the sorrow she caused others and the loss of Clayman. She reflected on her efforts to control many Magicborn, realizing it was pointless against strong foes. Clayman's failure highlighted the need for true allies, not just numbers. Kigali acknowledged her distrust in others due to repeated betrayals, though meeting Yuuki had mitigated her grudge against the world. Despite this, she bottled up her regret, feeling it was too late to change the past. The conversation continued with Laplace recounting his hardships, having fought trainee for 10 days straight in the forest. Despite his fatigue, he managed to bring back valuable information, living up to his reputation. Yuuki acknowledged his efforts, noting how the Demon Lord Guy had helped Laplace escape. Misha also shared her struggles, revealing how exhausting it was to incite Commander Caligulio to prolong the war. She nearly killed him out of frustration, but ultimately fulfilled her mission. Misha's voice carried a clear note of bitterness. Her suggestion had come too late. She had only been spared due to Yuuki's alliance with Rimuru. Otherwise, Diablo would have likely killed her. Reflecting on their luck, the group acknowledged Rimuru's extraordinary nature and the strength of his forces, which included several demon peers. Misha detailed how Rimuru's army had defeated powerful opponents with ease, including 2 single digits. Yuuki shifted the conversation to Benrie and Jiwoo, expressing frustration over being manipulated by Damrata, who had been his trusted confidant for years. This betrayal forced a major rethink of their strategy, as Damrata had significant influence and foresight. Kigali, lost in thought, suspected Damrata's involvement in their past failures, including Clayman's downfall. Yuuki agreed, but noted that Damrata's assistance had also helped them grow powerful. Misha, a former colleague, acknowledged Damrata's hard work and accomplishments, but also highlighted his ruthless and pragmatic side, suggesting a potential betrayal. Yuuki agreed that Damrata had betrayed him, but he wondered if it was intentional or simply following the Emperor's orders. Kigali and Yuuki concluded that Damrata's betrayal became clear from Lord Ghidorah's report, which revealed Lieutenant Kondo's involvement. The group speculated on Damrata's status and influence, noting that few people besides the Emperor could command the single digits. Despite the betrayal, Yuuki emphasized Damrata's dangerous capabilities, cautioning against immediate retaliation. Yuuki proposed that Damrata might have had hidden motives and suggested that there could be a deeper message in his actions. Yuuki suggested that Damrata, knowing about the resurrection bracelets, might have intended for Ghidorah to resurrect himself rather than truly killing him. This would have allowed Ghidorah to avoid falling into Lieutenant Kondo's hands. Kigali proposed that Damrata could be more loyal to Emperor Ludora than to Yuuki, viewing Yuuki's group as tools for his plans. This led to the hypothesis that the Imperial Army's defeat might have been part of a larger scheme involving a ritual requiring many deaths to awaken a demon lord. While Misha and Laplace were skeptical, Yuuki found the theory plausible. Damrata's actions could have been aimed at manipulating events to serve the Emperor's hidden objectives. By ensuring Ghidorah's silence, Damrata kept the Empire oblivious about Rimuru, leading to their costly defeat. The group concluded that Damrata's actions were likely intentional. They pondered Damrata's true purpose, considering possibilities such as testing their abilities or using them as pawns. Kigali suggested that Damrata might have brainwashed Clayman using a thought guidance spell or a similar ability. This concern prompted Yuuki to verify that none of his team members were under such influence. After ensuring no one was brainwashed, Yuuki shifted the conversation to their next steps. He proposed questioning Damrata about how much their plans had been compromised. Despite knowing that Damrata was aware of their intentions, the group discussed whether to confront him or find a way to move forward, given the circumstances. Yuuki's faction was firmly established in the Empire, but with few operatives left in the Western nations, they couldn't hide there. Relocating their entire group was impractical, especially given their numbers and lack of preparation. Misha highlighted the difficulty in running Cerberus without Damrata, whose skills were essential. Vega, the third leader, was ill-suited for management. He acknowledged that cutting their losses and fleeing was not a viable option, as there was no place that could accommodate their force of 100,000. Most importantly, those left behind would likely be purged. Yuuki speculated that Damrata had multiple reasons for keeping Ghidorah silent, possibly to prevent Kondo from learning their information and to ensure their coup's success. As Yuuki and Kigali shared their thoughts, Laplace questioned if Damrata and Kondo were secretly allied. Yuuki doubted this, arguing that Damrata knew about their coup plan due to a deal with the Demon Lord Guy and might prefer to create chaos in the capital. Ter and Footman seemed lost in the discussion, emphasizing the complexity of their situation and the uncertainty of Damrata's true intentions. After organizing her thoughts, Misha questioned whether someone as close to the Emperor as Damrata would want to see the capital in chaos. Yuuki and Kigali explained that Damrata's perspective was entirely rational, where any sacrifice was acceptable to achieve the goals. They emphasized that Damrata didn't see Yuuki or Rimuru as enemies. His only adversary was Guy Crimson. This clarified why Damrata would ignore their actions in the capital. Yuuki explained that Kondo's perspective was different. He viewed anyone against the Empire as an enemy. This likely created conflicts between Damrata and Kondo over various matters. Laplace, Tiare, and Footman agreed with Yuuki and Kigali's assessment. Misha then asked Yuuki about their future plans, suggesting they call off the coup and secure regional cities as bases. Yuuki rejected this idea, stating that their only chance of survival was to proceed with the coup. Just as Yuuki made this declaration, Damrata entered the room, his military demeanor evident. The tension in the room grew as the clowns prepared for combat, but Damrata halted Laplace with a quiet command. Then Yuuki and Damrata's conversation took an intense turn. Damrata revealed his men had surrounded the building, prompting Yuuki to relax and invite Damrata to sit. Damrata explained his loyalty to Yuuki and his desire for the coup's success. When Yuuki questioned why Damrata let Ghidorah go, Damrata admitted it was to prevent Kondo from obtaining information. Despite his loyalty oath to the Emperor, Damrata insisted his true allegiance was to Yuuki. Then he elaborated that he had spent years setting up the current situation to enable Yuuki to take over the Empire, positioning it as the only way to ultimately save Emperor Ludora. Yuuki, uneasy with how everything was aligning according to Damrata's plan, questioned him about using Clayman as a pawn without consulting him. Yuuki and the moderate jesters had a sworn bond of loyalty, with few they could trust. Clayman was among those trusted, making Yuuki's question about him crucial. The group's intense focus on Damrada underscored their mistrust. Despite this atmosphere, Damrada remained calm. Damrada denied involvement in what happened to Clayman, suggesting he had an idea of the culprit, but hadn't expected them to go so far. Yuuki pressed further, mentioning Tatsuya Kondo. Damrada, with a pained expression, acknowledged that he couldn't reveal everything due to legal constraints, but insisted on his loyalty to Yuuki and the importance of His Majesty's salvation. The group's cold gazes showed their deep mistrust. Damrada's forces were outside, creating a tense situation. Yuuki realized that escaping wouldn't be easy, and accepting Damrada's proposal might be their only option. Recalling Damrada's fearless and brazen nature from their first meeting, Yuuki reflected on the contradictions in Damrada's character. Despite his loyalty, there was always something untrustworthy about him. Yuuki confronted Damrada, sensing lies in his words and acknowledging his dual allegiance to both Yuuki and Emperor Ludora. Damrada admitted, "There's no pulling the wool over your eyes, boss." After thinking for a while, Yuuki decided to trust Damrada and proposed focusing on making the coup a success instead of fighting. The group, despite their initial doubts, agreed to follow Yuuki's decision. They warned Damrada against betrayal, expressing their support and readiness for action. He clowns, reaffirming their bonds of friendship and loyalty to Yuuki, accepted Damrada as part of those bonds. The day after Rimuru revived approximately 700,000 Imperial soldiers and officers, his troops, who played key roles in defending Tempest, were lined up in rows across the Colosseum. The rank-and-file soldiers filled every seat, ready for a victory celebration. Although still technically at war with the Empire, this event was planned to boost morale. Attendees included Bacchus from the Crusaders and the Overcomers serving Luminous, who had been revived after being killed by Jiwoo in the labyrinth. They graciously accepted Rimuru's apologies. Foreign guests, including Alvis, Phobio, and the Twin Wings, were also present. Lucia and Claire, the Twin Wings, reassured Rimuru, who felt relieved to see Milim's forces supporting them. Phobio was dispatched due to disrupted magical calls and was ready to bring reinforcements if needed. Rimuru decided to ignore Phobio's unfinished comment about Alvis, considering it resolved. Guests from Dwargon, such as Archwizard Jane and Pegasus Knight's Captain Dolph, joined as well. Jane expressed displeasure about forbidden spellcasting and Rimuru's association with primal demons, but he acknowledged these unavoidable issues. The celebration aimed to strengthen bonds and maintain high spirits among the troops and allies, setting the stage for continued resilience in the ongoing conflict. Jane, the Archwizard from Dwargon, expressed her shock and dismay regarding the situation with primal demons. Despite Rimuru's apologies and attempts to explain, she remained upset, but eventually calmed down after hearing his side of the story. However, Jane's visit was more than just to voice her concerns. 60,000 troops under Yuuki's command were stationed in front of Dwargon's eastern city, and Rimuru had a tentative war alliance with Yuuki, preventing immediate conflict. Tensions were high, and Rimuru planned to discuss the future with Yuuki. They had released Laplace with a message for Yuuki and were awaiting a response. Rimuru invited Jane and Dolph to the VIP seats to join in the victory celebration. An international audience gathered in the Colosseum, with Rimuru seated atop a raised podium in his slime form. Behind him stood Rigur, and other civil servants. Below, the 10 dungeon marvels, usually unseen in public, were present as the stars of the day. This was acceptable, given the absence of civilians and adventurers. Shuna, standing next to Rimuru, delivered a long and impassioned speech on his behalf, showcasing her exceptional skills as a secretary. Rimuru internally thanked her, acknowledging that neither Shion nor Diablo would have been suitable for the task. He pondered the next steps, aiming to announce their achievements and distribute rewards during the event. This celebration was a moment to awaken his staff. The international audience watched as Rimuru, in slime form, sat on a raised podium. Behind him stood Rigur, and other civil servants. Below, the 10 dungeon marvels were present, celebrated for their roles in the labyrinth defense. Shuna delivered a passionate speech on Rimuru's behalf, showcasing her exceptional skills. Rimuru, internally grateful, planned to announce achievements and distribute rewards during the event. According to Raphael, granting someone 100,000 souls would awaken them, evolving them into a true demon lord. Surprisingly, 12 candidates qualified. Ranga, Benimaru, Shion, Gabil, Geld, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, Kumara, Zegion, and Adalmann. Adalmann's faith in Rimuru surpassed the level required for a firm connection. With a little over 1 million souls stored, Rimuru had enough to awaken 10 people. Despite concerns about word leaking out, he decided to trust his guests, knowing they'd find out anyway. Milim, King Gazelle, and Jane were already aware of the labyrinth's power. Rimuru saw no point in concealing anything from the audience. For the first time, Rimuru was attempting to awaken others, aware that something unexpected could occur. Harnessing Ramiris's powers, he ensured the Colosseum was isolated from the city to prevent damage from spreading and to maintain confidentiality. Another concern was the Harvest Festival, a process that might incapacitate the targets for days, similar to what Rimuru experienced. However, Rimuru decided this wouldn't be a significant issue since the Imperial army was mostly defeated, with no immediate threat from the armored division. The Empire only had the magical beast and composite divisions left. With an alliance with Yuuki's composite division and the magical beast division being redirected, the immediate threat was minimal. Rimuru's Eye of God skill allowed him to track airships, ensuring they had at least 3 days' notice if the enemy changed course. Supersonic flight posed some threats, but Rimuru saw no reason for alarm. The only remaining concern was the Imperial Guardians. However, Rimuru was confident due to their recent victory and the advantage of fighting on home turf in the labyrinth, where they could revive anyone who died in battle. He pondered the possibility of fighting the Imperial Guardians. He felt confident he could win, and Benimaru probably could too. However, he was less certain about Shion, Ranga, Gabil, and Geld. To prepare for any encounters with powerful enemies, he decided to awaken his team immediately, ensuring they could at least buy time if needed. The soul connections, known as soul corridors, provided a solid link between Rimuru and his comrades, enabling thought communication. This would allow them to contact Rimuru immediately upon encountering a threat, setting the stage for coordinated attacks. Rimuru believed this was the best time to awaken his team. Eager to get started, Rimuru's first nominee for awakening was Benimaru, their diligent commander-in-chief. Despite some reservations about the demon's actions, Benimaru had led their forces with distinction. Shuna announced Benimaru, who then kneeled before Rimuru, ready for his reward. As Rimuru prepared to grant the awakening, Benimaru expressed his suspicion, recognizing Rimuru's scheming tendencies. Rimuru revealed that the awakening was meant to be a surprise, fearing objections if disclosed earlier. They continued their exchange while Shuna recounted Benimaru's war achievements. Rimuru then explained the concept of awakening, likening it to his own evolution into a demon lord. This process would significantly boost Benimaru's power and also enhance those who served under him. Benimaru, initially reluctant, realized the strategic necessity of this power-up. Though troubled, Benimaru ultimately conceded, understanding the importance of strengthening their forces against potential enemies. With a deep sigh, he accepted his fate, ready to embrace the new powers. Benimaru's concerns about the potential dangers of reducing their forces during this awakening process were valid. Rimuru reassured him that only 9 individuals would undergo the process initially, leaving the demons to guard things and relying on the labyrinth to buy time if necessary. The next concern was the potential power surge from awakening. Rimuru admitted that Benimaru could become even stronger than him, which could be risky. However, Rimuru trusted Benimaru's loyalty and set up an isolation chamber to contain any unexpected outcomes. Despite the concerns, Rimuru emphasized the importance of strengthening their forces to prepare for future threats. Benimaru, understanding the strategic necessity, agreed to proceed with the awakening, assuring Rimuru he wouldn't lose control. With Shuna concluding her speech, it was time for the award ceremony to begin. As the ceremony began, Benimaru was named the Flare Lord, a title signifying his intense, controlled fury and potential as a demon lord. When Rimuru attempted to use 100,000 souls to awaken Benimaru, nothing happened initially. Benimaru revealed that the voice of the world informed him that evolving into a god ogre would prevent him from fathering children due to the infinite lifespan of such beings. This lingering desire from his time as an ogre posed a problem, as he felt the need to ensure the continuation of his tribe. Acknowledging the significance of this duty, Rimuru considered the implications of Benimaru's evolution, understanding the need to balance power and personal responsibilities. The path to becoming a god ogre required addressing these deep-seated desires. Benimaru and Rimuru exchanged stares during the victory celebration. Rimuru, realizing the audience might notice something was amiss, decided to address the situation directly. He asked Benimaru if he wanted to get married as his reward, catching him off guard. The Colosseum erupted in cheers as the audience caught on. Shuna and Hakuro joined in, prompting Benimaru to choose his bride. Before Benimaru could respond, Momiji and Alvis stood up, requesting permission to marry him as a reward for their services. Momiji made a heartfelt request, with Hakuro supporting her. Alvis also expressed the same desire. The emotional intensity of the moment was palpable, and the soldiers eagerly watched this unexpected turn of events. Rimuru invited the two women to come forward, turning the celebration into a different kind of ceremony. Benimaru, usually composed, was overwhelmed by the sudden attention. As he tried to process everything, another voice added to the confusion, requesting candidacy for Benimaru's second wife. Both Rimuru and Benimaru were stunned by Alvis's offer to become Benimaru's second wife. It was clear that Momiji and Alvis were in a heated competition over Benimaru, but they seemed to have reached an agreement on the order. Rimuru, attempting to help Benimaru, pointed out the current Rimuru Tempest Federation law, which allowed polygamy only for widows seeking to bear children. However, Alvis revealed she had recently married Phobio, who had since passed away. This revelation meant she now met the legal requirements to become Benimaru's second wife. Rimuru was taken aback by this clever argument. Rimuru and Benimaru were puzzled by Alvis's claim. Phobio, alive and contrite, approached to explain. Alvis and Momiji, having fought and developed a friendship, planned for Alvis to marry Phobio. They then battled in the labyrinth, resulting in Alvis's victory and Phobio's resurrection, making her a widow under the law. Rimuru, confirming the legality with Rigurd, learned it was acceptable by monster standards. Shuna and Shion encouraged Benimaru to make a decision, emphasizing the determination shown by Momiji and Alvis. Then Sue's comment about Benimaru's father struck a chord, highlighting Benimaru's inner conflict. Despite the pressure, Benimaru remained resolute. Sue's straightforward advice pushed Benimaru to consider his feelings for Momiji and Alvis. He highlighted the importance of love in having children and urged Benimaru to make a decision. Momiji and Alvis's competitive spirits were evident as they each expressed their determination to win Benimaru's heart. Rimuru, acknowledging the national celebration, encouraged Benimaru to be sincere. Benimaru, showing concern for their future, asked if they would still choose him despite the possibility of not always being with them. Both women reassured him, expressing their resolve to evolve or find comfort in their children. Impressed by their determination, Benimaru finally smiled and asked Rimuru for permission to take both as his wives. Rimuru realized there was no way to refuse Benimaru's request. Recognizing the potential motivational boost for others by making special exceptions for exemplary performance, Rimuru decided to proceed. Despite Benimaru's typically gruff exterior, Rimuru knew he had a pure heart. Without intervention, Benimaru might have remained single forever. Rimuru transformed into human form and announced, "It is granted. By my name I hereby authorize the soul union between Benimaru, Momiji, and Alvis." In monster culture, marriage is seen as a union of souls, making the term fitting. Benimaru smiled, joy evident as he hugged Momiji and Alvis. "I thank you, and I promise you that I will demonstrate my full sincerity in loving them both." His words brought tears of joy to the women's eyes. Rimuru, though envious of Benimaru's situation, the Colosseum erupted in applause at Benimaru's promise. Shuna congratulated her brother, while Shion clapped proudly. Despite some jealousy among the crowd, it was clear everyone cared deeply for Benimaru. Momiji, Alvis, and Benimaru celebrated their new union amidst the cheering. Although Rimuru wanted to move to the party phase, there were still evolution rituals to complete. They announced the union and planned a proper wedding celebration later. Rimuru ordered Shuna to make necessary arrangements for the trio, raising a hand to quiet the cheering. Gobta was seen in tears, with Phobio consoling her. Back in his slime form, Rimuru settled on his chair as Shuna's dignified voice echoed across the Colosseum, calling for the three great commanders, Gobta, Geld, and Gabil. All three kneeled before Rimuru. Rimuru started with Gobta, who looked expectantly at him. Instead of a reward, Rimuru announced a new privilege for Gobta, who initially seemed puzzled. Realizing Gobta didn't qualify for evolution, Rimuru granted him the right to continue addressing him casually, a unique privilege. The announcement was met with cheers and jealous shouts, as Gobta's casual tone had been a source of complaints. Rimuru's decision highlighted Gobta's respect and the bond they shared, despite the unconventional nature of the privilege. Gobta, overjoyed by the privilege, stood up and bowed deeply, his gratitude evident. This unique reward highlighted the bond between Rimuru and Gobta, emphasizing the importance of inner qualities over outward appearances in their society. After granting Gobta the special privilege to speak casually, it was Geld's turn. Rimuru bestowed the title of Barrier Lord upon him, and Geld accepted with strong resolve. As the crowd cheered, Rimuru whispered about trying the same evolution ritual he did with Benimaru. Via thought communication, Rimuru explained the evolution process to those he intended to grant souls. Geld, expressing concern about his qualifications and potential risks, initially declined. He suggested Carrera, but Rimuru reassured him, emphasizing the trust and importance of his role. Rimuru highlighted Geld's past actions and the determination he had shown, assuring him of the trust placed in him. Convinced, Geld's resolve strengthened, understanding the benefits his evolution would bring to their nation's defenses. Geld accepted the offer, embodying his dedication to his compatriots. With the thought communication complete, Rimuru signaled Shuna, who handed Geld a customized set of legend-class armor and shield. These items, enhanced to react to Geld's aura, were expected to evolve rapidly, potentially reaching god-class status. Rimuru then initiated the evolution ritual, transferring the prescribed amount of souls to Geld. He encouraged Geld to take this opportunity to rest and envision the future, acknowledging his hard work and contributions to both battle and city construction. Grateful, Geld smiled and returned to his column, ready to embrace the evolution and the responsibilities that came with it. After finishing with Gobta and Geld, Rimuru turned to Gabil, who had led the 3rd Army Corps in an impressive aerial performance. Despite Gabil's meek expression and admission of leadership failures, Rimuru decided to address the matter privately via thought communication. Rimuru acknowledged Gabil's mistake of conducting an experiment during battle, but also noted the positive outcome of discovering the dragon body skill. Ultima suggested teaching Gabil more about magicule management, which Rimuru agreed to. Gabil responded positively, expressing gratitude for the opportunity to grow and master Dragon Body. Rimuru reflected on Gabil's growth from his once reckless personality to a more dignified and thoughtful leader. Rimuru, impressed by Gabil's growth and reliability, decided it was time to bestow a significant power upon him. Declaring him the newly christened Dracolord, Rimuru transferred the souls to Gabil, triggering an immediate and dramatic transformation. Gabil's scales turned from dark purple to reddish, and his body was enveloped in a fiery rush of magicules. Despite the intense process, Gabil maintained full control, demonstrating his immense willpower. With lightning emanating from his body, Gabil's evolution was remarkable. His newfound power was evident, and the transformation even bestowed magnificent horns upon him. As Dracolord, Gabil vowed to use his powers for Rimuru and their nation. The effects of the Harvest Festival varied among individuals. While Rimuru had fallen into a deep sleep, Gabil's transformation was swift. His evolution also benefited the members of Team Hiryu, who evolved into Dragon Newts, attaining a rank status. This significant upgrade included the new Dragon Skin skill, providing enhanced defensive capabilities and self-repairing armor. Ultima would coach the team on controlling their powers, ensuring they mastered their new abilities. Gabil's evolution into the Dracolord had a significant impact not only on him, but also on those around him. His new Dragon Skin skill provided the protection of a God-class suit of armor, making his defense almost impenetrable. This evolution marked a transformation so profound that it was fair to consider them an entirely new race, despite their still lizard-like appearance. Interestingly, Sokka and her 4 Dragonute guards were also affected by his evolution. These Dragonutes, who maintained a human form, had greater speed and offensive power compared to their peers. Their dragon body skill allowed them to manifest dragon scales and wings when necessary, making them appear more like dragon-like, magic-born. This hinted at a different evolutionary path, potentially leading to them becoming a distinct species. Sokka's team, already powerful, saw their strength increase significantly, with Sokka herself possessing enough magicule energy to rank with an archdemon. This evolution was a major step forward, enhancing their abilities and overall power within the group. Rimuru, appreciating Gabil's evolution, turned his attention to the next group: Ranga, Hakuro, Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera. Each stepped forward and kneeled before Rimuru. First up was Ranga, praised for his teamwork with Gobta. Rimuru granted him the title of Star-Lord, initiating his evolution. Ranga, showing signs of sleepiness, was placed back in Rimuru's shadow to rest and complete his transformation. Next was Hakuro, acknowledged for his advisory role. Despite Hakuro's modesty, Rimuru insisted on rewarding him. Through thought communication, Rimuru reassured Hakuro about Benimaru and Momiji's happiness and presented a masterpiece forged by Kurobe as a token of appreciation. Rimuru handed Hakuro a newly forged sword from Kurobe, whose skill had reached legend-equivalent levels. This sword, though not on the same level as Benimaru's blade, was a masterpiece. Hakuro, upon learning it was crafted by Kurobe, accepted the gift with heartfelt gratitude. Hakuro, moved by the gesture, promised not to let Rimuru's kindness go to waste. With the sword in hand, Hakuro joined the ranks of those who had been recognized and rewarded for their dedication and service. Rimuru faced a dilemma with Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera. Evolving the 3 demon peers could significantly boost their strength, but there were concerns about managing their newfound power. For now, Rimuru opted to prioritize Diablo's evolution, observing its effects before considering the Demoness's transformations. The 3 Demonesses, trusted by Diablo and under Rimuru's direct control, had done an excellent job as information officers, collecting many souls. Rimuru acknowledged their efforts and used the collected souls to benefit others. Although he worried they might be unhappy about this, the Demonesses reassured him of their unwavering loyalty and gratitude. Then Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera assured Rimuru that they were fully satisfied with their current state, having been granted bodies and names. Rimuru, acknowledging their strength, decided to reward them further. He officially acknowledged them as full members of his leadership, granting them partial command authority during times of war and bestowing new titles: Testarossa as the Killer Lord, Ultima as the Pain Lord, and Carrera as the Menace Lord. These titles reflected their roles in combat during the war. Grateful and pleased, the three Demonesses accepted their new titles and responsibilities, bowing in unison before returning to their columns. Continuing with the pace, the next groups to be rewarded were those who excelled in the labyrinth. Bovix and Equix received new equipment, while Ghidorah was promoted to Guardian of Floor 60, taking charge of the Demon Colossus and replacing Beretta as head of the 10 Dungeon Marvels. Ghidorah was also given access to the research facilities, now trusted with RD responsibilities. He seemed thrilled, making it a well-received reward. With Beretta and the 4 Dragon Lords under Ramiris' command, they were excluded from these proceedings. Rimuru's focus shifted to the Guardians of the deeper floors. Nine-Head Kumara, Floor 90, Insect Kaiser Zegion, Floor 80, Insect Queen, Abito, Floor 79, Immortal King Adalmann, Floor 70, and Death Paladin Alberto, Floor 70. This formidable lineup was ready for evolution, with Rimuru confident in their stability and control. The rewards start from Kumara. Rimuru decided to grant Kumara the title of Chimera Lord, recognizing her growth and the revenge she had achieved against Colonel Kansas. Initially, Kumara was brought into the labyrinth due to her skill in cultivating forests, and she had since become a formidable guardian of Floor 90. Rimuru recalled how Ranga had advised her placement and reflected on the remarkable transformation Kumara underwent after being named. Kumara now commanded 8 magical beasts, known as the 8 Legions, each a calamity-level threat. These beasts served as the bosses of floors 82 through 89. Rimuru remembered how he had named these creatures at Kumara's request, initially thinking it harmless but later realizing the deeper bond it created. This phenomenon strengthened the connection between Kumara and her tail beasts. Kumara's transformation and the evolution of her 8 legions were truly astonishing. The mystic beasts, which initially appeared as cute critters, had become incredibly powerful legions. Their strength fed back into Kumara, enhancing her own abilities and leading to her rapid evolution into the Chimera Lord. Kumara's 9 tails, 1 golden and 8 silver, symbolized her newfound power and beauty. Her long hair, now golden, added to her enchanting presence. Despite her increased strength and combat capabilities, the rapid evolution took a toll on her, making her struggle to stay conscious. Rimuru gently ordered Kumara to rest, recognizing the need for her to acclimate to her boosted power. As she returned to her guardian realm, her growth and transformation were eagerly anticipated. Next is Abito, Rimuru commending her for her superb battle against Minutes, an Imperial general. Despite her strength, Abito felt she was not worthy of a reward, having only fought to a draw and lost all her kin. Instead, she requested that the souls of her fallen brethren be instilled within her. Surprisingly, Raphael confirmed that this was possible. With Rimuru's consent, the spirits of the magical insects were instilled within Abito. Although Abito did not qualify for an evolution, Rimuru ensured she received a blessing through Zegion's evolution. Zegion was next in line. Despite considering postponing his evolution due to his immense power, Rimuru felt confident in Zegion's control and calm demeanor. Zegion, recognized for his unparalleled combat sense and high magicule count, had proven his might by single-handedly defeating the strongest members of the Imperial army. Rimuru acknowledged Zegion's strength and initiated the evolution ritual. Despite initial reservations, Rimuru trusted that the food chain skill would ultimately ensure his position at the top, even if Zegion's power surpassed expectations. The ritual proceeded, and Zegion humbly credited his growth to Rimuru's guidance, though it was largely due to Veldora and Raphael's mentoring. Rimuru praised Zegion's relentless efforts and granted him the title of Mist Lord. Zegion, deeply moved, accepted with unwavering loyalty. His growth was remarkable, nurtured by his unique training environment and Veldora's influence. Zegion's evolution was awe-inspiring. He willed his outer shell to transform into crimson steel, creating a god-class suit of armor. This transformation showcased his control over physical laws and marked him as a formidable combatant. His evolving powers hinted at an even greater potential, making him a significant force within their society. Zegion skillfully managed the power coursing through him, marking the onset of the Harvest Festival. Only Abito received secondary blessings, being the sole blood relative due to Rimuru's cell matter. Unfortunately, the insect floor species had been nearly wiped out in battle, including Abito's closer family. Their souls were transferred to Abito, who aimed to strengthen herself through them. Abito maintained a calm, dignified demeanor throughout, showcasing her regal nature. As Rimuru observed their composed handling of power, he felt a mix of admiration and respect, ordering them back to their positions. Following the celebration, Zegion and Abito returned to their labyrinth lairs, weaving themselves cocoons to complete their evolutions. Abito, bolstered by Zegion's blessing and the souls of her kin and subordinates, underwent a transformative rebirth within her cocoon. Her body reconstructed itself, becoming stronger and more battle-ready. Through the unique skill Da, Motherly Queen, Abito created 9 insect-type magic-born, each with distinct insectoid traits. This ability allowed her to consume insects and recreate them as magic-born, forming the foundation of a new insect hierarchy with Abito as their queen. As one of the dungeon marvels and Zegion's servant, she benefited greatly from his favors and blessings, resulting in her astonishing evolution. Zegion's evolution brought about immense changes, further solidifying his position as a formidable force. With his newfound ultimate skill, Mephisto, Lord of Illusion, he surpassed even the awakened Clayman in magicule count and power. This skill was truly fitting for someone who had trained under Veldora, elevating Zegion to a level of unprecedented strength and control. Abito's evolution, marked by the acquisition of the Motherly Queen's skill, was already a game-changer. Together, Zegion and Abito now ruled the labyrinth with absolute authority, creating a balanced and powerful leadership dynamic. The labyrinth had a king and queen who were more than capable of maintaining order and ensuring the prosperity of their realm. With Zegion and Abito evolving, only Adalmann and his loyal assistant remained among the labyrinth dwellers. Adalmann's intense faith in Rimuru, combined with his eccentric nature, made him a unique figure. Similar to Diablo, Adalmann's quirks had their advantages, such as aiding in the mastery of holy magic. His long-standing friendship with Ghidorah had led to collaborative research, resulting in the creation of the extra skill, Holy Evil Inversion, which effectively addressed a major weakness. Although it might seem odd to call him smart, given his lack of a physical brain, this was typical for monsters whose intellectual capabilities often resided in their astral or spiritual bodies. Some monsters, like Adalmann, could think with their hearts or souls. This was akin to individuals with the complete memory skill, like Shion, which allowed for thinking purely with one's soul and astral body. Achieving this level of intellect freed them from a physical lifespan, enabling them to regenerate their bodies at will, and rendering them nearly impervious to physical attacks. Only special attacks or legend-class weapons posed a threat. While Adalmann was close to this level, he wasn't quite there yet. As a White King, his thought processes were contained within his spiritual body, making him immune to aging, but still reliant on his physical form. This left him just shy of becoming a full-fledged spiritual life form, though not quite immortal. The same applied to Alberto, the Death Paladin, and the Death Dragon they commanded. Their teamwork was well honed, with Adalmann specializing in long-distance magic attacks to support Alberto on the front lines. The Death Dragon provided aerial support, ready to take over if Alberto was incapacitated. The recent battle proved to be too much for Adalmann and Alberto to handle. Facing the top elites among the Imperial Guardians, armed with legend-class gear, they encountered a level of power that outmatched them. Alberto's unique class sword, though excellent, couldn't compete with a legend-class blade. Despite this, Alberto's skillful swordsmanship allowed him to hold his own for as long as he did, and his efforts deserved commendation, not blame. Rimuru praised their efforts, especially highlighting Alberto's exceptional swordsmanship and Adalmann's mastery of magic. He acknowledged the diligent work of Adalmann, guided by Raphael, and emphasized the value it brought to their group. Despite Adalmann's modesty and his initial reluctance to accept further evolution due to his perceived failure, Rimuru encouraged him to embrace the opportunity for growth. Rimuru granted Adalmann the title of Gehenna Lord, urging him to learn from the defeat and strive even harder. Adalmann, moved by Rimuru's generosity, tearfully vowed to work even more diligently. Rimuru found it challenging to maintain a dignified tone for extended periods, and coming up with titles was no easy task. He spent the previous night contemplating suitable titles, driven more by a sense of duty than necessity due to his lack of need for sleep. Despite the difficulty, Rimuru decided to bestow Adalmann the title of Gehenna Lord, a title signifying the highest rank within his hierarchy. Currently, Adalmann is one of only 12 individuals to hold this esteemed rank, making him one of the most powerful military figures globally. This title also promised to give Adalmann more influence in Tempest affairs, provided Rimuru granted him the opportunity to voice his thoughts. Adalmann wasn't the only standout performer. Alberto knelt beside Adalmann, who was visibly fighting the urge to sleep, while the death dragon behind them tried to minimize its massive frame. Both had received blessings from their boss's evolution, making casual conversation secondary. Rimuru decided to grant Alberto new battle gear to replace his broken sword. Given Alberto's exceptional sword skills, the right weapon would significantly enhance his abilities. Initially, Rimuru considered giving him one of Kurobi's best works, but then reconsidered. Among the spoils of war were legend-class gear and some extremely rare god-class items from Caligulio, the enemy's top general. Kurobi, confident in his ability to create god-class gear, declined these items. Rimuru then contemplated the right recipient. God-class gear is believed to evolve over many years, assuming a spiritual existence and choosing its wielder. A noble soul turned undead, like Alberto, who had never lost his acolyte skills, seemed worthy. As a death paladin, the concept of a lifespan was meaningless to him. Having honed sword skills rivaling Hakuro's, Alberto appeared to be the ideal candidate. Rimuru's other companions already had preferred weapons, many refusing anything not forged by Kurobi. Diablo and the 3 Demonesses could manifest gear using create material, easily surpassing legend-level protection, making them independent of pre-existing armor. Some individuals, like Shion, poured magic power into their weapons out of sheer love. This dedication likely caused Shion's longsword, Gorikimaru, to evolve into its version 2, with legend-class capabilities. Despite the sword breaking during the battle against Rivel, it had restored itself, mirroring Shion's own resilience. This phenomenon was more unsettling than surprising, especially considering the implications of Shion's love in her cooking, which appeared to have extraordinary restorative properties. Reflecting on the importance of owner compatibility with battle gear, Rimuru decided that his top brass didn't require new equipment for the time being. Raphael's assurance that Alberto was the best candidate for the God-class blade solidified this decision. Consequently, Alberto was rewarded with a complete set of God-class gear, including a full suit of armor, a longsword, and a kite shield. Rimuru praised Alberto's exceptional swordsmanship and urged him to continue excelling in Adalmann's service. Alberto, visibly awed and anxious, accepted the gear, recognizing its extraordinary nature. The moment Alberto touched the God-class armor, it naturally enveloped his body, indicating its acceptance of him as its master. However, Rimuru noted that the armor's capabilities far exceeded his expectations once it bonded with its true master. While wielding the God-class gear, Alberto essentially functioned as an incarnated spiritual life form. This remarkable power of the God-class equipment allowed a physical being to temporarily gain the attributes of a spiritual life form, a godlike existence, similar to Veldora and Rimuru. Such beings do not age, are immune to status ailments, and can overcome death itself through sheer willpower. Understanding Raphael's recommendation, Rimuru saw that Alberto was indeed the right candidate for this extraordinary gear. Benimaru was already on the path to becoming a spiritual life form, with Ranga and Shion likely following. Gabil and Geld were not quite ready, and the God-class gear would not change that. Alberto, however, was perfectly suited for this enhancement. Rimuru also considered a reward for Adalmann's death dragon, which had made significant contributions. Naming the dragon seemed the perfect gift. Raphael suggested consuming souls to facilitate this process, estimating the requirement at 5,000 souls. Assured of the safety of this approach, Rimuru proceeded. He stood before the death dragon, patting its head, and declared, "I have a reward for you too. From this day forward, your name is Venti, Dragon Lord of the Underworld." As the souls were consumed, the naming was completed, and the death dragon's massive body began to shrink. Eventually, it transformed into a beautiful woman wearing a dark robe, reflecting the profound changes brought about by the naming. Rimuru was momentarily taken aback by the transformation, but quickly composed himself. With monsters, unexpected changes were not uncommon. He maintained a calm demeanor, internally acknowledging his ability to handle such surprises. The newly named Venti, now in human form, expressed gratitude, attributing her blessings to Rimuru. Rimuru clarified that the blessings were a result of Adalmann's influence, emphasizing the collaborative nature of their power. Adalmann and Venti shared a moment of mutual appreciation, their faith rewarded by Rimuru's actions. Rimuru, feeling somewhat sidelined, recognized the strong bond between master and servant, ultimately pleased with the outcome. With that, Adalmann and his servants had all received their gifts. Using souls to name monsters proved incredibly convenient. Naming Dragon Lord-class creatures can consume an unpredictable amount of magicules, and even with Raphael's oversight, Rimuru didn't have an infinite supply. Belzebuth had helped stockpile magicules gradually, but the recent naming of Testarossa and other demons had nearly depleted that reserve. Tapping Veldora for assistance wasn't ideal, as his cooperation required monumental effort and was best kept as a last resort. Rimuru also wanted to avoid inadvertently entering sleep mode from excessive naming, unsure of how long recovery would take due to his higher baseline of magicules. Being in the midst of war, it was a gamble he couldn't afford. Rimuru had been contemplating the best way to reward Ramiris. Inspired by the recent discovery of naming monsters using souls, he decided that naming the 4 Dragon Lords for her would be an excellent gesture. Although these Dragon Lords had no direct connection to him, the soul-based naming process would work perfectly. Rimuru credited Raphael for the brilliant idea. After all the recent evolutions, he still had over 20,000 souls remaining. He felt indebted to Ramiris, who had generously allowed him to keep so many souls. She had insisted, "Just take 'em, I ain't got no use for 'em." Rimuru thought that naming the Dragon Lords would be a thoughtful way to repay her kindness, and hoped she would be pleased with the idea. He made a mental note to discuss it with her later. With the proceedings for the Labyrinth Gang concluded, the celebration reached its climax. Only 2 major figures remained, Shion and Diablo, the toughest nuts to crack. Despite Rimuru's confidence that no one would lose control, caution was still essential, especially given the unpredictable nature of Shion and Diablo. Rimuru began with Shion, granting her the title of War Lord, and urging her to maintain calm decorum. Shion, brimming with confidence, affirmed her calm and mature nature, though Rimuru silently noted that she still had much to learn in that regard. He reminded her to consult with her comrades, protect their nation, and keep her composure. When Rimuru granted Shion her souls, there was an unexpected lack of change. Shion looked confused, and Rimuru began to worry that the process had failed. However, soon after, members of Team Reborn under Shion began falling asleep, followed by some of her elite guard. It appeared that they had received blessings from Shion, even though she remained unaffected. Recognizing this strange phenomenon, Rimuru decided to let Shion manage the situation, advising her to report any abnormalities she might sense in her body. Rimuru empathized with Shion when she asked if he had any special rewards prepared for her, similar to what he had devised for Gobta. Conducting her ritual like the others, it might have seemed to the audience that she only received a fancy title. Shion didn't need new weapons, so Rimuru had to think of something else. Deciding to offer her something unique, Rimuru announced he would teach her how to make a very special dish. Shion immediately questioned if this meant she was a better cook than Shuna, which Rimuru promptly denied. Shuna, overhearing the conversation, rolled her eyes but was pleased with Rimuru's immediate denial. Whispering to Shion about a kitchen expansion, Rimuru managed to please her, and she returned to her column. Meanwhile, Team Reborn was evolving in fascinating ways. They seemed to be turning into spiritual life forms with physical bodies, unlike demons who were spiritual by default. This new species, which Rimuru tentatively called Death Oni, retained the ability to breed and produce offspring. Some of them even acquired Shion's body-enhancing extra skill, Divine Force. Their magicule counts weren't as high as Team Hiryu's, but their immortality made it difficult to determine which group was stronger. Despite Shion herself showing little outward change, her evolution ritual concluded, marking the significant transformations in her team. Diablo was next on the list, a figure who had been visibly fidgeting with an expectant smile. Stopping the event now would likely cause more chaos than proceeding, given his potential for destruction. With a sense of foreboding, Rimuru called out, "Diablo." "Yes, Sir Rimuru," Diablo responded eagerly. Rimuru had no doubt this evolution would elevate Diablo to the most powerful figure among the monsters, possibly even surpassing Rimuru himself. Despite Diablo's claims of being unable to defeat Zegion, Rimuru suspected Diablo was holding back. Diablo had already demonstrated his immense strength by overpowering formidable opponents like Jiwoo and Benrie simultaneously. Zegion's strength was impressive, but Diablo seemed always a step ahead. As Rimuru prepared for the evolution, he acknowledged that Diablo was already his strongest subordinate, and might even surpass Rimuru if he fully exerted himself. Rimuru announced, "Diablo, I can think of no title more appropriate for you than Demon Lord. May you continue to serve as my right-hand man and unite all the demons under our banner." Diablo's response was enthusiastic. "K-hey-hey-hey-hey! I remain as ever at your service, Sir Rimuru." Rimuru nodded and performed the ritual. Thus, a new fiend was born. The evolution process for Diablo concluded swiftly, initially causing Rimuru to suspect another Shion-type dud. However, it became clear that Diablo was simply exhibiting perfect control over his energy flows, masking any visible changes. Diablo had now evolved into one of the most powerful beings in the world. A portion of his newfound strength flowed into Rimuru through their newly created soul corridor, revealing the frightening upper limits of Diablo's power. Rimuru realized that Diablo had indeed become his most powerful underling, surpassing even Benimaru and Shion. Diablo's magicule count now rivaled Rimuru's, and given his accumulated skills, Rimuru acknowledged that Diablo might even be unbeatable in a direct confrontation. Despite this realization, Rimuru maintained his composure. He praised Diablo for his impressive evolution, to which Diablo responded with gratitude, his personality unchanged. Rimuru humorously considered the possibility of a mutiny, but trusted Diablo's loyalty. Noticing Diablo was attempting to acquire a new ability, Rimuru inquired about his actions. Diablo explained that he had recognized the usefulness of ultimate skills during the previous battle, and now sought to obtain one himself, motivated by the desire to outshine Guy's bragging. Rimuru found Diablo's competitive nature amusing, noting that while Diablo disliked Guy's boasting, he was eager to boast in return. Despite this quirk, Rimuru was confident in Diablo's loyalty, and saw no reason to treat him any differently. After Diablo's evolution, it became apparent that his blessings had extended to his second-in-command, Venom, and the 100 demons under Venom's direct command. However, it seemed Diablo might have siphoned some energy away from these blessings, reflecting his belief that strength must be earned, not given. Despite this, Venom displayed significant growth, evolving into a full demon peer. Although he wasn't on par with Testarossa and her peers, and even lagged behind Moss and Veyron, Venom's evolution was notable. He acknowledged his status as a newcomer, having lived for less than a century, and recognized his place within the demon hierarchy. Venom's evolution hinted at a unique past, possibly as a reincarnate, as he sometimes experienced déjà vu and recalled words without knowing their meanings. Despite his newfound power, he remained humble and aware of his limitations, valuing experience over mere magicule counts. Venom candidly shared that he once challenged Lord Diablo, who decisively demonstrated the vast difference in their strengths. This humbling experience was a lesson Venom learned well, ensuring he never repeated the mistake. Diablo's strictness ensured that anyone who overstepped their bounds would be swiftly dealt with. Rimuru appreciated Venom's maturity and looked forward to his continued development. Regarding the rest of the blessing receivers, they were still forming in the incubation capsules. All 100 had been reborn as Diablo Chevaliers. They didn't quite reach the level of archdemons, but as demonic knights, they were on par with high-level magicborn, capable of defeating a great demon in a single hit. Their power was extraordinary, but Diablo didn't seem to care much about them. They remained under Venom's command, while Diablo preferred to stay free and mobile, directly under Rimuru. This demonstrated that despite his evolution and increased power, Diablo remained unchanged in his priorities and loyalty. No matter how much he evolved or surpassed others, Diablo stayed true to his core nature. With all the top staff having completed their evolution rituals without any major issues, the victory celebration continued. Rimuru called out to those who distinguished themselves in battle, thanking them for their hard work. The celebration then moved to a feast, attended by those still awake. The entire group would gather next time, but for now, they enjoyed the party. Rimuru was disappointed that Jane and the Twin Wings couldn't join, as they had urgent matters to attend to. Hopefully, they would be able to relax more during their next visit. During the feast, Rimuru noticed a couple of individuals getting belligerent under the influence. Phobio and Gobta were having a rather public and emotional conversation about their romantic disappointments and mutual admiration. Rimuru, mature enough not to cause a scene, decided to let it slide, recognizing that love works in mysterious ways. The night passed happily, with the party in full swing, marking the end of a successful celebration. With the nation now having a new set of lords governing it, Rimuru reflected on the changes. Regulations forbade them from calling themselves demon lords, but 9 individuals were now practically equivalent to awakened demon lords. Adding the 3 primal demons to this group, they were well prepared to handle any exceptional events. Rimuru decided to refer to these 12 individuals as the Mandhiwuda, 12 lordly guardians. Some of them were also part of other groups like the Big Four and the 10 Dungeon Marvels, but the lordly title took precedence. Unlike those other groups, Rimuru had no plans to replace these 12 anytime soon, as their positions were lifelong appointments due to their eternal life. In the future, they would ideally step back from day-to-day duties and only take up their roles during wars or emergencies. Rimuru also acknowledged other great staff like Rigur, Gobta, and Mjolnir, who were all mortal. This distinction between permanent posts and generational jobs would need to be addressed eventually. Gobta, in particular, was on Rimuru's mind. Despite his unique evolution and unchanged outward appearance, Gobta had become a top leader, resourceful and strong in a fight. His transformation team-up with Ranga was a game-changer. Gobta's position in Tempest was now solidified, placing him closer to Rimuru than many other top office holders. Interestingly, word of these events spread quickly, and Rimuru was given the nickname Rimuru the Chaos Creator, which he decided to embrace, fully aware of his actions. As the party continued, Rimuru found it amusing to see his friends enjoying themselves, reflecting on the biggest reward he might have given out that day. Jane attended a celebration where she witnessed something astonishing. Rimuru evolving all his closest staff into de facto true demon lords. The scene was so beyond reality that it surpassed her worst fears. She had come to ask Rimuru about his intentions regarding the primals, trusting him personally, but still wary of their potential threat. During their meeting, Rimuru acted naturally, unchanged since their last encounter. Jane lodged her complaint harshly, hoping to gauge his thoughts. Rimuru, acting remorseful, apologized, but explained that Diablo had orchestrated the demon deluge on his own. This revelation left Jane shocked and concerned. Learning that Diablo was Noir, the original Black, confirmed the enormity of the situation. Despite her initial relief that Rimuru hadn't become more arrogant, she realized she might have been too lenient. The act of mass-producing true demon lords was an alarming display of power, revealing the potential for true malice. Jane was sure that Rimuru meant no malice in his actions. She understood that Rimuru likely hoped to handle everything by himself to avoid causing further trouble for her and her kingdom. Normally, such acts might be seen as hostile intimidation, but Jane trusted Rimuru's sincerity and saw his actions as open disclosure based on trust. However, Jane realized she might have had some responsibility. If she had instilled more common sense into Rimuru earlier, things might have been different. Reflecting on the current situation, Jane noted the expanded capacity for war that Tempest now possessed, making it a significant military threat. Jane considered that previous deliberations with King Gabil had concluded there was nothing they could do, and this still seemed true. With the war against the Empire ongoing and Rimuru's plans to storm the Imperial capital, Jane felt overwhelmed with confusion. She knew she had to inform King Gabil about the new true demon lords Rimuru had created. For a brief moment, Jane thought about ignoring the situation, but she quickly dismissed that idea. She had previously confronted King Gabil about the primals and knew she couldn't remain silent now. Deciding to leave, she instructed Dolph to attend the next meeting on her behalf and prepared to return via magic, contemplating the uncertain future. Despite maintaining calm expressions, the twin wings, Lucia and Claire, were intensely distressed. They had come to Tempest to assess its current strength in light of the ongoing war with the Nazca Namrium Ulmeria United Eastern Empire. Expecting casualties and potential setbacks for Tempest, they were astonished to find zero damage and high morale among the residents. Attending the victory celebration, Lucia and Claire witnessed something beyond their wildest imaginations. Rimuru's top staff had gained powers on par with Lady Frey. This revelation was so shocking that they could hardly process it. Realizing the gravity of the situation, they decided to report back to Lady Frey immediately. Through a brief telepathic conversation, they agreed to return home and inform her of the events. They flew back, ready to convey the extraordinary developments they had witnessed. In a secluded corner of the unfinished keep atop their temporary castle, Frey sighed deeply, her thoughts heavy with concern. She couldn't fathom what Rimuru, often referred to as that slime, was thinking. Carillon, who had grown close to Frey while serving as Milim's aide, noticed her distress and tried to lighten the mood, although his efforts were met with frustration. Frey's mind was preoccupied with recent events, and her worry was evident. Carillon, sensing something significant, inquired if the issue was related to struggles against the Imperials. Frey wished it were that simple, as she would then send reinforcements without hesitation. However, the situation was far more complex, leading her to confirm Carillon's suspicion about Rimuru's actions. Carillon's silence and subsequent shock were palpable as Frey detailed the report she had received from the Twin Wings. According to their information, Rimuru now had 7 new Demon Lord-class subordinates. These individuals, previously on par with Frey in strength, had undergone a significant power boost following their evolution. Some were still in the midst of evolving, but their full capabilities were expected to manifest soon. Despite the overwhelming nature of the report, Frey accepted it at face value, though she remained skeptical. Carillon, still processing the information, struggled to believe it. Frey's insistence on the truth left no room for doubt. Neither Caroline nor Frey had ever demonstrated the full extent of their power to their own people. However, the twin wings, having served Frey closely for years, had a good sense of her true strength. Their reports, even if only estimates, were not to be taken lightly. Frey's subordinates would never dare to lie or joke about such matters, and Caroline had no choice but to accept the veracity of their story. Internally, Caroline wondered what Phobio and Alvis were doing, as Phobio was notoriously poor at assessing the strength of opponents, often oblivious to extraordinary occurrences around him. Surely, Alvis would have noticed and reported back. As these thoughts stewed in his mind, Frey suddenly recalled a significant piece of news. She mentioned that Alvis had become engaged to Sir Benimaru, the general overseeing Rimuru's armies. This potential union could benefit their nations, and Rimuru had given his approval. Caroline, surprised, confirmed that Alvis had indeed consulted him about this matter. He had advised her to seize Benimaru by force, resulting in a decisive victory for Alvis. He couldn't help but smile at the outcome, though it seemed Alvis would be Benimaru's second wife. Caroline shrugged off the notion, stating that as long as Alvis had a child, it was a favorable outcome. Frey found his perspective a bit vulgar, but dismissed it. The conversation then turned to their cultural differences. In Frey's society, women typically took multiple husbands, the opposite of Caroline's people, where stronger men maintained relationships with multiple women. These differences highlighted the inherent incompatibilities between their races. Despite this, Caroline and Frey recognized and respected each other's strengths, carefully maintaining their unique relationship. Caroline, sensing Frey's reluctance to delve deeper into the matter, resolved to continue supporting her. While they were on friendly terms with Rimuru's nation and wished to maintain that relationship, they needed a clear grasp of what had transpired. They also aimed to strengthen their own positions, if possible. The conversation reminded them of Clayman's final moments, where he exhibited significant powers. Caroline speculated that Clayman's power came from gathering souls to achieve his true demon lord status. Frey agreed, noting that it seemed Rimuru had acquired a vast number of souls during the war and used them to trigger awakenings among his subordinates. Frey revealed that Tempest's army had suffered 0 casualties, while the Empire's army of 940,000 soldiers was completely wiped out. This staggering number of souls likely allowed Rimuru to elevate multiple followers to awakened status. Caroline was astounded by the scale of this power shift, realizing that the balance of power had dramatically changed. He questioned what the Empire might do next, but Frey dismissed their importance. The real concern was how they would respond to these developments and adjust their strategies accordingly. Caroline could celebrate Alvis later. For now, he was all business, and Frey was fine with that. They were on friendly terms with Rimuru's nation and wanted to keep it that way, but they needed a good grasp of what had happened. If possible, they also wanted to elevate their own positions. Caroline was reminded of Clayman's final moments when he unleashed significant powers. They discussed Rimuru's awakening process and speculated that gathering souls was the key. Caroline reasoned that Rimuru had likely acquired a vast number of souls during the war and distributed them to his subordinates to trigger their awakenings. Caroline could celebrate Alvis later. For now, he was all business, and Frey was fine with that. They were on friendly terms with Rimuru's nation and wanted to keep it that way, but they needed a good grasp of what had happened. If possible, they also wanted to elevate their own positions. Caroline was reminded of Clayman's final moments when he unleashed significant powers. They discussed Rimuru's awakening process and speculated that gathering souls was the key. Caroline reasoned that Rimuru had likely acquired a vast number of souls during the war and distributed them to his subordinates to trigger their awakenings. Caroline, determined to aim higher, suggested that perhaps they had been too complacent. Frey agreed, appreciating his drive. Their conversation was interrupted by Melim, who offered her unique brand of training, much to Caroline and Frey's dismay. However, Frey cleverly redirected Melim's focus, preventing any immediate training sessions. Despite the interruption, Caroline and Frey remained resolved to pursue their ambitions. Whether they would achieve their goals remained uncertain, but their drive to evolve continued to burn brightly within them. Before forgetting, Rimuru decided to thank Veldora and Ramiris. For Veldora, Rimuru had prepared new clothing. Veldora usually went around topless with a cape, which Rimuru saw as a bit of a problem. Though Veldora seemed unbothered, Rimuru thought it was a good time to offer an alternative as a gift. Veldora was thrilled, believing Rimuru had finally understood his desire for cooler clothes. Rimuru suggested that Veldora could have asked Shuna any time for new outfits, but Veldora insisted that only a custom-made outfit from Rimuru would suffice. Despite Rimuru's self-admitted lack of fashion sense, the new outfit was a big hit with Veldora. He eagerly tried on every piece right in front of Rimuru, who was glad Veldora was happy with the gift, and encouraged him to keep up the good work. Rimuru considered this a small token of appreciation for all the benefits received from Veldora. Next, Rimuru thanked Ramiris for her help, acknowledging her crucial assistance. Ramiris, feeling a bit bashful, brushed off the formality and emphasized their mutual support. Rimuru, not being great at expressing gratitude, still found it important to do so when necessary. Rimuru offered Ramiris a reward, which she initially thought might be a dress, but Rimuru clarified that he had something else in mind. He intended to name her Dragon Lords, essentially making her their mom. Ramiris was thrilled and surprised by this gesture, which ultimately worked out well. At the event yesterday, Rimuru named Adalmann's pet Venti, which caused her to evolve and gain the ability to transform into a human and speak fluently. Rimuru thought a similar transformation might benefit Ramiris's Dragon Lords, potentially easing Beretta's workload. Ramiris eagerly approved the idea, leaving the naming task to Rimuru, who decided to go with fantasy game-style names. Ramiris fetched the Dragon Lords and brought them to Veldora's chambers. Seeing the 4 Dragon Lords lined up, Rimuru realized they had likely faced many adventurers, but remained dedicated to their posts. Rimuru wanted to give them fitting and powerful names, as Dragon Lords had more magicules than even archdemons, though they weren't fully developed yet. Rimuru's gut feeling led to names inspired by Greek mythology, specifically the Anemoi, deities of the cardinal winds. The Fire Dragon Lord became Euros, the Draconic Flame Lord. The Ice Dragon Lord became Zephyros, the Draconic Frost Lord. The Wind Dragon Lord became Notos, the Draconic Sky Lord, and the Earth Dragon Lord became Boreas, the Draconic Terra Lord. These names were attributed to Ramiris, creating a soul connection between her and the dragons. Rimuru hoped they would continue to serve her faithfully. The results of naming the Dragon Lords exceeded Rimuru's expectations. Each of the Dragon Lords transformed into forms close to human, though they still retained some draconic characteristics. Euros, the Brimstone Dragon Lord, became a beautiful woman with red hair, auburn skin and a dragon-scale dress, and a tail resembling a flaming whip. Zephyros, the Frostkeep Dragon Lord, transformed into a slender, handsome young man with an elegant, gentle appearance and long green hair, giving him an almost feminine beauty. Notos, the Sky Thunder Dragon Lord, took on the form of a little girl with jagged teeth and menacing fangs, a mismatch for her incredible strength. Boreas, the Earthshaker Dragon Lord, turned into a large, muscular man covered in dragon scales and spines. The combination of horror and beauty resulted in a twisted sort of attractiveness, resembling a legion of supervillains. Although these transformations were mainly aesthetic, the Dragon Lords retained their physical nature, unlike dragonoids or true dragons, which are spiritual life forms with physical bodies. Despite the remaining physical aspects of the Dragon Lords, their evolution was a significant success. They acquired more magic force than anticipated, with several times more magicules than before. While not quite reaching the level of a true demon lord, their power now approached that of an awakened claimant. Rimuru was relieved that he used souls for the naming process instead of his own magicules, which could have caused irreparable damage. In total, Rimuru consumed 5,000 souls for the evolutions. Despite the illogical nature of monsters, the naming system proved effective. The Dragon Lord's evolutions served as a successful thank you gift to Ramiris, completing the transformation process. The 10 dungeon marvels and the newly evolved Dragon Lords were evenly matched in terms of magicule counts. However, there was still a significant gap in combat power that numbers alone couldn't capture. Even with their strong monster bodies and powerful attacks, the Dragon Lords lagged behind in combat skills compared to their peers. This discrepancy was largely due to their lack of battle experience and foundational combat skills. During the Labyrinth Siege, the Dragon Lords faced frequent defeats, which must have been frustrating. Upon gaining the ability to speak fluently after their evolution, their first request was for training. Tithishe realized that mastering human-style combat and refining their skill set would be more effective than relying solely on monster-style techniques. They needed to understand and incorporate their magic more effectively into their fighting strategies. Veldora, having successfully trained Zegion, eagerly accepted the role of training the Dragon Lords. Nearly 100 officers were gathered in a large tent used for military conferences. These senior staffers, once among the Empire's greatest heroes, had now lost all their former power. Caligulio addressed them, bowing his head and apologizing for his incompetence, which he believed had led them to this situation. However, the assembled officers, including Krishna, disagreed and insisted they were equally responsible for not stopping the Emperor. One officer noted that their foolishness had incurred the wrath of God, yet by his mercy they had been given a chance to atone for their sins. Caligulio agreed, acknowledging the invasion as a sin and reflecting on their overconfidence and lack of intelligence about their enemy. The mention of God made Caligulio think of Rimuru, whom he now regarded as his savior. He realized there was no place for him in the Empire, as returning would mean execution without trial. While he accepted his responsibility, he felt it was wrong to throw away the life granted by Rimuru. Focusing on the present, Caligulio gathered his staff to discuss their future. Adalmann had given them the freedom to consult and make plans, and Caligulio wanted to ensure that Adalmann's kindness was not wasted. The officers engaged in open discussion, which led to two major factions emerging. One group believed they should stay and maintain their allegiance to their captors, while the other argued for a return to the Empire without delay. The two factions among Caligulio's officers were at an impasse, each with understandable arguments. Those with families naturally wanted to return home, but whether that was possible depended on the intentions of the Demon Lord Rimuru. Negotiations might be possible, but pushing too hard could be risky. Caligulio believed, as Sir Adalmann assured them, that Rimuru had no interest in executing them without reason. However, this did not mean they were forgiven. Their lives were in the hands of Rimuru, and getting too selfish could present unknown dangers. Despite the risk of execution upon returning, some officers wanted to ensure the safe return of soldiers with families. Major General Minutes pointed out the Empire's ruthless history and the unlikelihood of their nation accepting defeat. The Empire's arrogance, born from consistent victories, left them unprepared for total defeat and the consequences that came with it. Even if they could return to the Empire, their future there seemed bleak. Despite this, some officers felt a responsibility to the soldiers' families. The mention of Tempest's numerous Demon Lord-class leaders highlighted the Intelligence Bureau's negligence. The officers' conversation, though candid, had to remain respectful, mindful of their status as prisoners of war. Free speech was welcome in the meeting, with no monsters present, and Adalmann absent since the previous day. However, the officers couldn't forget their position. Lord Rimuru was seen as a generous leader by Caligulio and his officers, but they were cautious not to badmouth his staff. The fact that someone under Rimuru's command could wield powerful magic like gravity collapse highlighted the Demon Lord's danger, raising questions about the Imperial Information Bureau's IIB negligence. Caligulio agreed with the criticism of the IIB, wishing he had voiced it himself. Suddenly Benrie, who had been silent until now, revealed that the IIB did have some intelligence. This revelation shocked the group, leading to questions about why this information was withheld from the Emperor. The group was agitated, except for Minutes and Caligulio, who remained calm. Minutes confirmed that Benrie, being on a covert mission, might know top-secret information. Benrie explained that Emperor Ludora knew about their potential defeat and had taken it into consideration. This revelation led to the realization that they were just pawns in a larger strategy. Caligulio began to explain the Emperor's possible intentions, but was interrupted by Benrie, who insisted on taking the blame for leaking national secrets. Benrie admitted that he served the Emperor only because he knew he couldn't defeat him. Benrie, originally from the United States, had once been a freedom-loving student. In another world, he was discovered by Ghidorah and trained in fighting by Damrada. This training boosted his confidence until he met Velgrind, a being of unimaginable power who served Emperor Ludora. Velgrind's presence shattered Bernrie's ambitions of overthrowing the Emperor. When Benrie met the Emperor, Ludora recognized his potential as a vessel and offered him power. This encounter left Benrie unable to defy the Emperor, sealing his fate as a loyal servant. Benrie revealed that Emperor Ludora considered the loss of 1 million elites part of his plan. Caligulio quickly grasped that the Emperor was willing to sacrifice countless lives to awaken powerful individuals like him. Benrie confirmed this, explaining that Ludora aimed to gather a collection of awakened people as pawns, even if it meant heavy casualties. This strategy, unknown to most senior officers, highlighted Ludora's focus on quality over quantity. Minutes questioned Benrie, understanding that their past defeat by Veldora might have been part of a similar strategy. Benrie explained that the power gap was immense and that their defeat was inevitable under the Emperor's plan. Despite their awakening, they misjudged Tempest's strength, leading to their loss. Caligulio felt remorse for not being strong enough, but Benrie reassured him that their opponent's strength was unmatched. The officers realized that Tempest's power exceeded the IIB's projections, and their plan to use Rimuru as a stepping stone had failed. Although Benrie laughed inappropriately, he wished he could confront the Emperor with this truth. Now, faced with their failure, the question remained about what to do next. Benrie assured his colleagues that he would take responsibility for the situation. He clarified that, in the eyes of the Emperor, they were already dead. The Emperor had no use for soldiers who had lost their powers and had no chance of awakening. As such, he wouldn't protect them or accept them as prisoners if offered by Tempest. Allowing them to return would spread anti-war sentiment, which was against the Emperor's will. Minutes understood Benrie's point, realizing they were now a burden to the Imperial Information Bureau, IIB. The IIB would likely target anyone attempting to return home and blame Tempest for their actions, stirring anger and a desire for revenge among the populace. Minutes questioned the practicality of targeting 700,000 people, but Benrie explained that those who underwent enhancement surgery still retained some power. Fighting back would mean battling their own side. Minutes asked if the single digits could handle it, to which Benrie confirmed they could, though it would be challenging. Absolute power was effective for offense, but not defense, especially against swarming enemies. Pursuing scattered enemies would also be difficult, making it necessary to eliminate all targets with no survivors. Benrie acknowledged the difficulty, noting only one individual capable of such a feat. Benrie explained that the Empire had an individual with unmatched power capable of eliminating vast numbers of enemies. Recalling this figure filled him with dread, a feeling shared only by those who had encountered such a presence. Minutes, realizing the gravity of the situation, acknowledged his mistake. Both Caligulio and Minutes reflected on their futile ambitions, recognizing that true power struggles were beyond their reach. The officers, now aware of the harsh reality, felt disillusioned. Benrie emphasized the futility of returning home, as only despair awaited them. Their best option was to remain as prisoners and wait for the war to end. When asked about his plans, Benrie declared his intention to return to the Empire. He anticipated that Rimuru would need a guide for negotiations, a role Benrie expected to be perilous. Despite knowing the risks, Benrie was determined to proceed, understanding the dire consequences if they failed to navigate this delicate situation. The silence that followed underscored the realization that Rimuru held their fates in his hands. After expressing gratitude to Veldora and Ramiris, Rimuru decided to visit floor 70 of the labyrinth. Adalmann, following his evolution ritual, was in a deep sleep in a guest room. Alberto and Venti were also resting in their quarters, expected to wake soon. Rimuru was concerned about the Imperial prisoners of war. Adalmann had been overseeing them, but Rimuru wanted to ensure they were calm enough to provide valuable information about the Empire. With his 2 secretaries accompanying him, Rimuru felt secure. Upon arrival, Diablo and Shion offered to handle the task, but Rimuru doubted they would actually go down there voluntarily. Despite the recent evolution ritual, both Diablo and Shion appeared to be in top form. Diablo excitedly shared that he had acquired an ultimate skill, thanks to Rimuru. This skill prevented him from feeling frustrated by Guy's bragging. Rimuru noted that Diablo could have developed such a skill independently, but Diablo insisted that learning from Guy would have felt like copying. Shion, proud of her cooking mastery under Gobichi's guidance, displayed a strange confidence that Rimuru found amusing. Despite her smugness, Rimuru suspected Gobichi just wanted to distance himself from her. Adalmann was asleep following his evolution ritual, and the Imperial prisoners of war needed attention. Accompanied by his secretaries, Rimuru set out to gather information from the prisoners. Upon arrival, they were greeted by saluting soldiers who escorted them to a tent where Caligulio was holding a military conference. Inside, 100 high-ranking officers saluted Rimuru, showing respect despite his slime form. Rimuru switched to his human form to maintain dignity and address the officers. Rimuru acknowledged the situation and invited them to discuss any requests, aiming to ease their minds and facilitate a productive conversation. He reassured them that Adalmann was occupied with other matters and inquired if they had any immediate needs or concerns. Caligulio and his officers were being overly formal, but given their situation, Rimuru understood. When Rimuru asked about their future plans, Caligulio made a surprising request. They wished to stay in Rimuru's country, fearing they'd be killed if they returned to the Empire. Benrie then explained that it wasn't out of the question for the Empire to sacrifice its soldiers to awaken powerful individuals. This realization led Rimuru to question the Empire's motives, suggesting they might have delayed their invasion to wait for Veldora's return rather than fearing his release. Benrie confirmed this suspicion, revealing Emperor Ludora's strategy of using the war to identify and awaken strong individuals among his forces. The scale of this plan was overwhelming, making it hard for ordinary people to comprehend. Rimuru was taken aback by the cold logic and sheer ruthlessness of this strategy. He saw the need to accommodate these officers to prevent further unnecessary loss of life, while Raphael, his internal guide, found the strategic approach interesting, much to Rimuru's frustration. Rimuru considered the request from Caligulio and his officers to stay in Tempest. He understood the practical and political complications of accommodating 700,000 soldiers, but felt a responsibility since he had saved their lives. Rimuru emphasized that while he was willing to allow them to stay, they would need to contribute to the nation. The officers eagerly accepted this condition, ready to work for their keep. With Geld currently unavailable due to his evolutionary sleep, Rimuru sought to determine how the soldiers could be most useful. He asked if they had any skills in public works projects. Rimuru recognized the strong link between the military and civil engineering, recalling how even in his previous life, military forces often excelled in such skills. He decided to leverage this expertise by assigning the Imperial soldiers a task. With Caligulio's assurance of the Empire's technological prowess, Rimuru instructed them to restore the destroyed castle to its former glory. He would arrange the supplies, but the soldiers were to handle everything else, from design to execution. Caligulio confidently accepted the task, and his staff immediately began organizing the work with impressive efficiency. Rimuru anticipated that once Adalmann awoke, additional support from skeletons could expedite the rebuilding process. This assignment provided the Imperial army with a clear purpose and a productive role in Tempest. Rimuru shifted his focus to intel gathering, taking a few of Caligulio's staffers familiar with Imperial matters to a conference hall. He aimed to hold a comprehensive meeting with his cabinet members and the Imperial officers to discuss their next moves regarding the Empire. At this point, the Empire was likely unaware of Caligulio's defeat. Rimuru knew that Yuuki might have received reports from Misha and Laplace, but potential leaks seemed unlikely. He had already informed Luminous about the 300 airships heading her way. Confidently, she promised to guard against the Imperial forces, with the Holy Empire of Lubelius and its paladins ready to respond. Additionally, Hinata was part of the team intercepting the airships, ensuring they were prepared for any scenario. The following 17 people were seated in the hall: Shion and Diablo, Rimuru's secretaries, Benimaru, the Supreme General, and Rigurd and Kaijin, assistants in political affairs, Gabil and Gobta, core leaders, Hakuro, advisor, Sui, intelligence officer, and Ghidorah, a material witness, Testarossa, Ultima, and Carrera, the 3 Demonesses. On the Imperial side, Caligulio, Minitz, Benrie, and Jiwu. Including Rimuru, there were 18 people present. Introductions revealed that the 3 Demonesses were primals, stunning the Imperials. Rimuru anticipated complaints but decided to move forward with the discussion. So if there's stuff you can't share with me, that's cool, okay? Just tell me whatever you can, Rimuru said. Rimuru used Argos, the Eye of God, to display the airship squadron in flight, setting the stage for Caligulio to brief everyone on the Empire's current state. Despite the unsettling sight of the large surveillance screen, Caligulio maintained his composure and began his detailed explanation. He started to describe the Flying Combat Corps, part of the armored division he led, which operated 400 state-of-the-art airships. 300 of these airships were en route to northern Inglesia, each capable of carrying up to 400 people. The Magical Beast Division, led by General Gradim, comprised 30,000 troops, each paired with a magical beast, effectively doubling their numbers. They were also accompanied by 30,000 support personnel, primarily non-combatant sorcerers and maintenance staff, commanded by Major General Zamdo. Caligulio admitted that many of the troops sent to Inglesia were novices, primarily involved in RD, and their combat performance might suffer. He requested mercy for these non-combatant personnel, asking Rimuru to take them prisoner instead of killing them if possible. Shion reacted strongly to this request, finding it audacious that the invaders now sought mercy. Caligulio, understanding the gravity of his request, apologized profusely. Rimuru acknowledged the complexity of the situation and indicated that the decision lay beyond their immediate control, depending on how events unfolded. Caligulio accepted this, understanding the precarious nature of their circumstances and expressing his willingness to comply with Rimuru's decisions. Rimuru considered Caligulio's request, but made it clear that he couldn't make any promises. The resurrection magic wasn't foolproof and depended on specific conditions being met. Additionally, Luminous's reaction to the situation could limit Rimuru's ability to intervene. Given the threat posed by Gradim's Magical Beast Division, there was no guarantee that Hinata and her troops wouldn't suffer significant damage, leaving little room for mercy. Rimuru acknowledged the strong defensive capabilities of Tempest, but also emphasized that there were no absolutes in war. With that, they concluded the discussion on this matter and prepared to move on to the next topic: Dwargon's Eastern City. Rimuru switched the Eye of God to display an army of 60,000 troops, appearing relaxed and devoid of tension. The Imperial officers were shocked, but Rimuru continued his briefing. Rimuru explained that he had reluctantly formed an alliance with Yuuki. Although it seemed like a standoff, it was more of a strategic performance. Minutes expressed frustration, realizing their compromised position meant they had little chance of winning from the start. Caligulio agreed, acknowledging that once his armored division and Gradim's Magical Beast Division were defeated, the enemy would turn their attention to the Imperial capital, signaling checkmate. Benrie, however, pointed out that the Emperor still had powerful protectors in the capital. Awakened soldiers, essentially one-man armies, could change the tide, and the Emperor likely anticipated Yuki's potential rebellion. Rimuru found it strange to hear Benrie speak so formally, given his previous informal demeanor with Masayuki. Benrie clarified that his current military mode was a result of his education in this world, contrasting with his usual informal self. Benrie revealed his origins from the United States and his history as an average student, which endeared him slightly to Rimuru. Benrie also confirmed Rimuru's suspicion that someone in the Empire could potentially kill him, highlighting the unpredictable nature of their world, where even a large army could be defeated by a single powerful individual. Shion impulsively volunteered to confront this threat, but Rimuru, knowing the risks, denied her request. Diablo also offered, but Rimuru promptly turned down his offer as well. Rimuru couldn't help but imagine how dire the situation could become if Diablo were to lose. He emphasized the importance of creating a situation where victory was assured before making any moves. Intelligence gathering was crucial, as past failures often stemmed from a lack of information. He reminded everyone to stay vigilant and avoid falling into the same traps. He addressed Benrie and Jiwoo, acknowledging their strategy of using Masayuki to get close to him without arousing suspicion. Rimuru praised their perfect execution, noting that even Raphael hadn't picked up on it. He recognized how easy it could have been for the situation to turn against them, leading to the Empire overrunning Tempest. Benimaru and Sway admitted their shortcomings, vowing to improve their vigilance. They had always been more cautious than Rimuru, who realized he needed to heighten his awareness of potential dangers. Benrie and Jiwoo explained that Damrada had ordered them to protect Masayuki, but they never knew each other's identities until the assassination order came. This level of secrecy within the Empire's ranks was surprising. Rimuru pondered the thoroughness of this strategy, designed to prevent treachery and protect the Emperor's safety. Rimuru remarked on the inefficiency of keeping Benrie and Jiwoo unaware of each other's identities. Ghidorah, chuckling, respectfully pointed out that Rimuru, despite his intelligence, sometimes lacked caution. He emphasized that Damrada, a cunning man who trusted no one, operated with extreme caution to prevent conspiracies. Rimuru acknowledged this, understanding that Damrada, one of the three leaders of Cerberus and a high-ranking single digit, was indeed highly cautious. Ghidorah confirmed that Damrada was likely the vice-commander of the Imperial Guardians, with Tatsuya Kondo suspected as the commander. Benrie and Jiwoo, realizing there was no point in hiding information any longer, corroborated Ghidorah's assessment. They revealed that Damrada was indeed the vice-commander, and that the attack on Rimuru was a secret order from Commander Kondo, overriding their initial orders to guard Masayuki. Jiwoo explained her cover story, designed to gain Masayuki's trust. Rimuru questioned the logic of not working together from the start, to which Jiwoo agreed. She believed Kondo used Masayuki to avoid arousing suspicion, creating the perfect opportunity for the assassination attempt. Reflecting on their situation, Benrie had his suspicions about the different objectives of Damrada and the commander. It seemed odd that Damrada would abandon his carefully organized undercover operation. The differing goals might have led to the risky decision to blow their cover, making Benrie and Jiwoo question the underlying reasons. Rimuru, curious, asked if any of the Empire's officers had ever seen Emperor Ludora's face. Only Ghidorah raised his hand, surprising Benimaru, who found it hard to believe that they served someone they had never seen. This led to a discussion about the unusual behavior of royals and nobles, with Kaijin noting that Rimuru's social and approachable demeanor was quite rare. Hakuro questioned Benrie about the reasoning behind the Emperor's guardians not knowing his face. Benrie explained that only those ranked 6th or higher had seen His Majesty. The top 4 members, known as the 4 Knights, were always with the Emperor and had held their positions for many years. Hakuro, not shying away from tough questions, asked if Benrie and Jiwoo were less trusted or inferior in ability compared to the 4 Knights. This frustrated Benrie a bit. Benrie acknowledged that defeating any of the 4 Knights would be an uphill battle, and the Imperial Marshal, a fearsome juggernaut, was even more formidable. This figure was someone Benrie believed even the combined force of the single digits couldn't defeat. Rimuru considered the known figures, Kondo, Damrada, the 4 knights and the marshal totaling 7. Adding Benrie and Jiwoo made 9, which meant there was still one more unknown single digit. Rimuru pondered the cutoff for accessing the Emperor and realized that the marshal must not be a ranked member, leaving another unknown individual. Seeking clarity, Rimuru asked if anyone had seen Emperor Ludora's face. Only Ghidorah raised his hand, surprising the others. They discussed the secrecy and the unusual nature of the Emperor's guardians, not knowing his appearance. Benrie explained that only those ranked 6th or higher had seen the Emperor, with the 4 knights and the marshal being his closest protectors. Rimuru then brought up the resemblance between Masayuki and the Emperor, suggesting that Damrata and the single-digit commander might have different objectives. Benrie and Jiwoo confirmed they had been ordered to protect Masayuki without knowing the reason, but the sudden change in orders raised suspicions. Ghidorah believed that if Kondo was the commander, he would have known about the resemblance. The discussion revealed Kondo as a sly and mysterious figure with a strong grip on Imperial intelligence. He was difficult to deal with and had thwarted several hostile attempts, proving his exceptional abilities. Caligulio's attempts to obscure details were quickly countered by Minutes' candid revelations, highlighting Kondo's status as a formidable wildcard within the Imperial military. Ghidorah, despite his significant battle prowess, acknowledged that defeating Kondo would be an impossible task, indicating Kondo's immense strength, likely rivaling the likes of Hinata or King Gazelle. Rimuru considered the complexity of the situation. Kondo, aware of Masayuki's resemblance to the Emperor, likely had different objectives from Damrata. The massive attack ordered by the commander, which disregarded Masayuki's life, contrasted sharply with Damrata's intent to protect him. Benrie and Jiwoo's orders to eliminate Masayuki once he was no longer useful added another layer of intrigue. Traveling with Masayuki had created a bond, leading Benrie and Jiwoo to hesitate in carrying out their orders. They had considered hiding Masayuki or erasing his memories instead of killing him, revealing their conflicted loyalties. Rimuru decided that Masayuki needed to be kept under guard for a while and assigned Soe to handle this task. He deduced that Damrata and the commander had different agendas, one seeking to protect Masayuki and the other wanting him dead. This internal conflict within the Empire was advantageous for Rimuru, although he acknowledged the difficulty in exploiting it without further information. Rimuru, now understanding Benrie and Jiwoo's situation, wanted to delve deeper into the Empire's factions, particularly those with access to ultimate skills. Benrie explained the single digits, a group of 9 powerful individuals. For someone to join, an existing member had to be ousted, indicating a minimal difference in strength among the top members. Benrie clarified that rank 11 served as an auxiliary single digit, while rank 10 was a temporary substitute. Only those who awakened to gain ultimate skills could become single digits, making the gap between 9th and 10th significant. Benrie was ranked 7th and Jiwoo 9th, leaving Rimuru wary of numbers 1 through 6, number 8, and the marshal. Neither Benrie nor Jiwoo knew much about Damrata's faction, confirming the secrecy even within their ranks. Benrie elaborated on rank 10's role, always on standby within the Empire, while Imperial Knights below this rank worked in teams to handle crises. Despite lacking an ultimate skill, rank 10 was as formidable as an awakened demon lord. The top Imperial Knights approached Saint level, and the Empire would likely need to stage a war against multiple demon lords to enhance the Imperial Guardian's strength. Minutes expressed disbelief at the idea of the Empire waging war against someone who defeated them without losing a single soldier. Benrie acknowledged the Imperial Guardian's significant threat, emphasizing that the Imperial army primarily served as a visible deterrent for those unaware of real strength. Rimuru began to see a clearer picture of the Empire's strategy. The large standing army served more than just as a threat to other nations. It also provided a sense of security for the Empire's subjects, who paid taxes in exchange for protection. While 100 elite warriors might be sufficient for offensive actions, defense required a large number of personnel to cover multiple bases and maintain control. This strategy, despite seeming counterintuitive, ensured that the Empire's policies appeared sound to its people. Ghidorah, reflecting on the Empire's past strategies, noted that the army's primary role was originally defensive. They used elite forces to weaken other nations' morale and establish control before moving in their main army. The shift to deploying the army first puzzled him until he realized it was to manufacture more awakened individuals. This revelation hinted at Emperor Ludorah's true objective, adding more powerful individuals to his arsenal. Benimaru and Benrie both concluded that the invasion's goal was not outright victory, but to awaken more troops. Benrie listed several individuals likely to awaken, including General Caligulio, Major General Minutes, Colonel Kanzas, and Krishna. His orders had been to secure an escape route for the newly awakened once the invasion was over. The realization that the Empire sought to awaken troops rather than win battles changed Rimuru's understanding of their tactics. The assumptions about the Empire's confidence in defeating Tempest and the Western nations were challenged by this new perspective. Raphael, acknowledging the lack of information, committed to refining its analysis to achieve a more accurate understanding in the future. Rimuru considered the implications of Emperor Ludorah's strategy, recognizing that Ludorah was collecting awakened individuals and granting them ultimate skills to build an elite fighting force. This force aimed to overpower groups like Rimuru's Octagram and the champions of the Western nations, enabling the Emperor to conquer the world. Benimaru and Diablo agreed with this assessment, acknowledging that non-awakened soldiers meant little to Ludorah. The discussion revealed the unsettling reality that ultimate skills could significantly level the playing field, putting humans on par with beings like Benimaru and Diablo. This admission was tough for them to accept. The conversation veered off as Diablo boasted about his ultimate skill, causing some jealousy among the others. Rimuru steered the discussion back on track, emphasizing the Empire's objective to weed out the weak and strengthen their elite forces. Rigurd and Kaijin grasped Rimuru's point, understanding that the Empire's strategy involved pitting strong against strong, with support from allies to ensure the weak didn't hinder them. This tactic aimed to destabilize the balance of power maintained by powerful individuals like King Gazelle, Hinata, and Emperor Elmesia, making the world a more chaotic and contested place. Gabil's and the others' reactions to the Empire's strategy made Caligulio and Minutes wince, realizing the sheer madness of their operation. Hakuro's sentiment about war being fought by those willing to fight struck a chord, though the world often didn't work that way. Ghidorah mentioned that Yuuki had noted the Demon Lord Guy's concern over the Empire's growing strength, given his reputation as the strongest Demon Lord. Guy's goal was to unite the world under Demon Lord rule, clashing directly with the Empire's ambitions. Diablo, Ultima, and Carrera questioned why Guy hadn't acted against the Empire. Testarossa explained that Guy hesitated because Lady Velgrind, a true dragon and Veldorah's elder sister, resided in the Empire. Angering her would complicate matters for him. Caligulio and Minutes were surprised by Testarossa's demeanor, prompting her to clarify her respect for Velgrind due to her relationship with Veldora and Rimuru. The name Velgrind piqued Rimuru's curiosity. Minutes tried to change the subject quickly, but Rimuru confirmed his suspicion. Velgrind was a true dragon, one of the most powerful beings in the world and the Empire's formidable ace. Testarossa explained that while the relationship between her kind and the true dragons was complex, it was natural to show respect given Veldora's connection to Rimuru. Rimuru pondered the relationship between the Demonesses and the true dragons, realizing that without their current ties to Veldora and him, they might not show any respect for the true dragons at all. Testarossa admitted that she couldn't defeat Velgrind, and while Guy's capabilities were unknown, the immortality of true dragons gave them an unbeatable edge. Velgrind, as a true dragon, could always resurrect after death, although her personality and part of her memories might reset. This made her truly immortal and a significant threat to Rimuru and his allies. Caligulio, Minutes, Jiwu, and Benrie clarified that Velgrind was the Empire's official guardian dragon, protecting them from angelic attacks in exchange for tribute. She symbolized the Empire's prosperity, and the single digit swore never to defy her. The Empire's connection to Velgrind was more about symbolic protection rather than direct favors. Benimaru's reaction to discussing Velgrind indicated deeper concerns. Rimuru, realizing the potential danger Velgrind posed, probed further about the Empire's marshal. When Benrie and Jiwoo's reactions confirmed Rimuru's suspicions, he deduced that the marshal was indeed Velgrind the Flame Dragon. This revelation highlighted why the Demon Lord Guy hadn't attacked the Empire, considering Velgrind's immense power and immortality. Acknowledging the risk of provoking Velgrind, Rimuru recognized that invading the Empire would be reckless. Benimaru suggested involving Veldora, but Rimuru hesitated to drag Veldora into personal affairs, especially against his own sister. Rimuru decided to inform Yuuki of the situation, knowing they needed to rework their strategy. However, Diablo, in his typical fashion, had already contacted Guy, who was expected to arrive soon. This unexpected move by Diablo left Rimuru exasperated, but he accepted the reality and prepared for Guy's visit. Guy arrived in a foul mood, expressing his irritation at being summoned. Rimuru hoped Guy would direct his frustration at Diablo, not him. Guy was taken to the luxurious reception room in the guest house, filled with elegant decor selected by Mjolnir. The room exuded a sense of quiet refinement, aligning with Rimuru's tastes and offering a relaxing ambiance. Despite the risk of potential damage, Rimuru knew entertaining Guy in a bare-bones waiting room would be unwise. The reception room, reserved for royalty and nobility, was the best option to avoid offending the world's strongest demon lord. Guy's mood was evident as he settled into the reception room, his chair creaking ominously. Rimuru, having dismissed everyone else from the meeting, was cautious of potential damage, especially given the luxurious and carefully curated decor by Mjolnir. The reception room now housed 4 key figures: Diablo, Benimaru, Shion, and Rimuru himself. Guy had brought 3 women with him, and one of them, with a striking resemblance to Milim, was Velzard, Veldora's elder sister, and one of the 4 true dragons known as the Ice Dragon. Her presence and elegant demeanor were both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Hanging out with Veldora had made Rimuru feel somewhat accustomed to true dragons, but Velzard was on an entirely different level. Her aura control was so precise that Rimuru couldn't sense it at all, making her presence even more intimidating. Despite her youthful appearance, Velzard's beauty and dominance were undeniable. Introducing himself awkwardly, Rimuru felt absurd but kept smiling. Velzard's pleasant laugh and her transition to a more innocent demeanor eased the tension. The introductions continued, revealing the other 2 women in Guy's entourage: Miseri, the original green, and Rain, the original blue, both dressed in their dark maid uniforms and exuding a powerful presence. Rimuru realized the importance of being cautious around them, wrapping up the introductions carefully. Benimaru displayed impeccable politeness, while Shion's greeting made Rimuru nervous, and Diablo's presence felt like handling a live bomb. Despite his initial doubts about taking this group in, Rimuru knew it was too late to change course. With everyone seated and Shuna expertly serving tea, Rimuru got straight to the point, questioning Guy about his connection to the Empire. Guy acknowledged Rimuru's sharp observation and revealed that he had a bet with someone who had grand ideals. This bet involved using others as their pieces in a game without directly fighting each other. Guy confirmed Rimuru's suspicions that they were the game pieces, and Rimuru, seeking clarity, asked if Guy's opponent was the Imperial Emperor. Rimuru sought confirmation from Guy about Emperor Ludora, suspecting that Ludora, with Velgrind by his side, was indeed Guy's rival. Guy confirmed this without hesitation, even seeming pleased to share it. The realization that Ludora might be as strong as Guy was daunting for Rimuru. Benimaru boldly asked about the conditions for victory in the game. Was defeating Emperor Ludora necessary, or just subduing his pieces? This question was crucial, as neutralizing the Empire's force seemed more achievable than facing someone on Guy's level. Then Diablo suggests to eliminate Guy would be solved the problem. His impulsive suggestion to eliminate Guy was met with unified exasperation from both Guy and Rimuru. The moment of shared frustration inadvertently built a rapport between them, though it left Rimuru even more exhausted by Diablo's antics. Then Guy, with an ominous grin, hinted at a favor he wanted from Rimuru. Rimuru's instincts told him it wasn't going to be good. Guy then plainly asked Rimuru to neutralize Emperor Ludora's pieces and help him win his game against the Emperor. This request was filled with an undercurrent of coercion, especially when Guy began to apply physical pressure by rubbing Rimuru's shoulders.